The rain had been falling for hours, beads of water running silver down the gallery's tall windows and blurring the city lights outside, my palm pressed flat against the doorframe. I tried to wipe off my shoes on the mat, but it was useless. The mud was caked, heavy, ugly. The warmth inside the gallery didn't reach me. The lighting was all sharp white, unforgiving. Clusters of people clinked wine glasses, laughed at something small and intimate. I couldn't help the way my jaw clenched. Joe, the gallery owner, looked at me as if I'd tracked something foul across his mother's rug. His suit was sleek, navy perfect. Mine, borrowed from my brother, mismatched at the sleeves, felt like armor made of memories I didn't want. I still carried the envelope, heavy and damp, that held 3 short stories, each with a hopeful note attached. I cleared my throat as I approached him. "Joe," I managed, forcing a cautious smile, "thanks again for looking over my work." He nodded barely. "Francisco, I know you're passionate." His Portuguese was precise, years abroad from some foreign university. "But this isn't for us, maybe someday." I could feel the eyes of people nearby, the ones who'd known me since we were kids. They leaned in slightly, hungry for disappointment. Rainwater dripped from my hair down my forehead. I wiped it away. "Is it the writing or the stories?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice even. "It's childish," he said, too quietly for most but loud enough for Pedro, my cousin, to stifle a laugh behind his glass. His eyes gave him away, half pity, half triumph. "Dreams are fine, Chico, but at a certain age you need to work, do something real." I stared at the papers in my hand, edges curled from dampness. The gallery's laughter rose, glancing off the walls. Joe was ushered away by someone important. I faded into the corner, swallowing the bitter taste at the back of my throat. I walked home through the Bakers' winding streets, shirt clinging to my skin, rain turning Lisbon's sidewalks into swirling rivers of light and shadow. Home was a crumbling building at the edge of Ajuda where my mother kept a rosary on the wall and my siblings' voices were sharp from the kitchen. Rain pattered against the thin glass. When I entered, the scent of grilled sardines hit me, warm and familiar, a small mercy. I shrugged off my jacket and dropped the envelope on the table. No one spoke. Not until my father set down his soup spoon. "You're home early," he said mildly, always careful to walk the edge between concern and disappointment. "Another rejection." I nodded, shoulders tight. My sister Mariana smirked from behind her phone. "Bom, we are what we are, right?" she said. "No shame in it, not everyone can be a doctor." She grinned at Andre, who was 2 years younger and finishing medical school. I wanted to throw my ruined stories across the table, but I just looked away. "It's raining," I said, which sounded stupid, but it was all I had. Everything in the house was loud, every word aimed at soft spots left exposed. They went back to their laughter. I barely tasted dinner, weighed down with anger and shame and something worse, the hollow echo of possibility crumpling like wet paper in my hands. At night, Lisbon glistened, yellow streetlights shimmered in puddles. I walked the streets until I was bone-tired, winding past the closed bookshops and peeling posters, past the little bar by the docks where the old men still played fado from battered radios. I thought about slipping inside, listening for a while, but I kept walking, lungs burning, trying to outrun the sound of Joe's voice. I wrote mostly at night, at a desk pushed against my bedroom window. There the city was quieter, and I could believe, just for a breath, that someone somewhere might read one of my stories and see themselves inside. The words came in fits and starts, ugly sometimes, beautiful sometimes. I wanted to write Lisbon as it was, bruised and dazzling, stubborn and real. I wanted to find my way into places the daylight couldn't reach. But every morning I woke to the slap of reality. My mother's sigh, bills on the counter, my siblings teasing, "Francisco Escritor, how will you pay for coffee with poetry?" The city outside my window was indifferent. I'd hand in applications for jobs at cafes, construction sites, bookshops, always the same result. My father would say, "Time is running out, Francisco," and I'd nod as if I understood, as if believing hard enough could change anything. By autumn, desperate, I tried the big literary magazines. No reply. I sent work to small presses, local weeklies, English language zines, anything, my inbox filled with form rejections. I learned to stop waiting for a reply. Some nights anger swallowed me alive, a hot thing, rootless. I'd picture Joe's voice, Mariana's laughter, parents' disappointed glances. I'd think of leaving, of never returning, and then the feeling would break, replaced by a slow and grinding serenity, a kind of stubbornness. I would write. Even if everyone left, even if the city erased me. The turning point when it finally came wasn't glorious. I woke to rain again, but softer, more forgiving. I checked my email as automatic as breathing. One message stood out: unfamiliar address, subject, "We loved your story." I thought it was spam. I clicked anyway. "Dear Francisco, we were deeply moved by the piece you sent, The River at the Bottom of Rua dos Douradores. We would like to publish it in our next issue. Payment is modest, but we hope you'll consider submitting again." My hands shook. The magazine was small, independent, run from some flat in Berlin, but they had actually read my work. I screamed just once into my pillow. At breakfast, I wanted to say something. Mariana was reading about Kim Kardashian. My father was hunched over receipts. My mother peeled potatoes. I almost didn't open my mouth, but I remembered the taste of rejection and pushed past it. "I have an acceptance," I said. "A magazine wants to publish my story." Andre looked up, curious. "In Portuguese?" "No, in English, a translation. It's a start." Mariana rolled her eyes, but there was a flicker of something in her gaze, not approval, but a kind of recognition, like when you hear a distant song you used to love. My mother smiled, small, hesitant. "Parabéns," she said, reaching out to touch my hand. It was enough. "If you're waiting for magic, you wait a long time." I kept working. One acceptance became two, then four. I started writing in English more, then Portuguese again. People sent me messages about the stories, and for the first time, readers became real, separate from me. They wrote about their own families, their favorite corners of Lisbon, the way loneliness tastes late at night. I printed every letter, tucked them in a shoebox under my bed. After a while, one of my stories caught the attention of a British publisher. I was stunned, jaw actually slack, hands nearly dropping my phone. They wanted a book. "Your work reminds us of Saramago and Ferrante," they wrote, impossibly generous, more than I was ready to believe. I signed the contract in the smoky kitchen of our apartment, my mother standing behind me, nervously twisting her rosary. The advance wasn't much, but it was more than I'd earned in a year of cleaning hotel rooms. The publisher introduced me to an editor, a fast-talking woman named Rachel, who believed in my stories, argued with me about sentences cut with precision. The work was harder than anything before. It was also exhilarating. When the novel finally appeared, it was thin with a blue cover. My name on the spine looked small, almost accidental. The first copies arrived by courier, 5 slim books, the pages still smelling of glue. I passed one to my father in the living room. His fingers trembled as he traced the title. "Francisco fonts," he said quietly, as if testing the sound. "This is beautiful," he whispered. My heart swelled, then broke a little, because I wanted this moment for years, even when I swore I didn't care. The book did well, better than I'd expected. International sales trickled in, then reviews, then miraculously, a nomination for an award I had only ever admired from afar. My editor asked me to come to London for the ceremony. I went, newly bought shoes too tight, nerves frayed, but for the first time in years I felt steady. Not proud, not yet, but steady. I met writers I had read in quiet corners of bookstores. Some recognized my name, but all I could think of that whole night was Lisbon, Rua Augusta's glossy stones, the rain. The faces that watched me walk home, with laughter, with pity, sometimes with something like love. 3 years had passed since that gallery night. I went home, not to win them over, just because I needed to see the city again. There is always a part of you, no matter how far you run, that is tethered to the place where you failed. The city was the same, maybe a little busier, the paint chipped, trams occasionally replaced by silent e-buses. The bookstore where I had written some of my earliest stories, Livraria Bertrand, now had a table with my book on it, nestled among the bestsellers. The woman at the register didn't recognize me, but I hovered for a while, watching tourists pick it up and set it down. Once a teenage boy bought a copy. I wanted to thank him, but I just watched him walk out into the rain. The publisher called. Would I do a local signing, maybe a reading? I hesitated, but agreed. The event would be at a different gallery, one I didn't know. My heart thumped. I felt anger again, an old wound preparing for battle, then serenity, the calm of having nothing left to prove. I emailed invitations to everyone who'd laughed that night. Joe, Pedro, Mariana, my old friends. I waited. Most didn't reply. The day of the event, Lisbon was cold, threatening rain again. I stood outside the gallery staring at the reflections in the window, older, thinner, but not so different. When I walked inside, the arrangement was different. Rows of chairs, a small table, warm lights. My book stood in stacks near the front. People were arriving, some I recognized. My mother nervous in her best shawl, Andre now in a white doctor's coat helicoptering in like a proud sidekick. Even Mariana, hair slicked back, professional and unreadable. Among the faces, Joe suited, smug, older but not wiser, the room filled. When I took the stage, a cheap wooden platform with a single microphone, my hands shook just for a second. I knew they waited. For failure, perhaps. For arrogance, for something they could understand. I took a breath and read a passage from my book, a story about a Lisbon rain and hope and silence. The words sounded true and deep and mine. I finished. The room paused, just a breath, then there was applause, honest and loud. My mother cried softly. Andre smiled with pride that couldn't be faked. Joe approached, his face unreadable. He picked up the book, ran his thumb down the spine. "You really wrote this?" he asked. The words were almost mocking, but his gaze flickered. "I did," I said, calm. Even he nodded slowly, reluctant. "Congratulations," he said. "Truly." I heard what he didn't say. I was wrong. Maybe he would never say it, but it was enough. Pedro shuffled up behind him, grinning. "Chico, can you sign one for my wife?" His eyes were sheepish. "She loves your stories." Mariana waited until the end, arms folded. "It's good," she said, never one to gush. "You did it, I guess." "I guess I did." We stood on the gallery steps, night creeping in. Rain tapped gently on the city, everyone huddled close. I stood with family, with neighbors who had doubted, with friends who had laughed, and for a moment, long enough, I felt whole, steady. On the way home, I walked slowly through the labyrinth of Lisbon's old stones. The city glittered, washed clean by the rain. I no longer needed to win anyone over, not even myself. I had left, I had returned, I had written the truth, that was enough. The rain found me again, gentle, not sharp. I raised my face to it, smiling.